What's up, you guys? It's RC Lee, and I'm going to be doing a really quick repair video on my Granite 3S. This is a very common issue that a lot of people have, which is that the tire and wheel ends up falling off and usually rolling away from your truck right here. Now the issue is that the screw that goes through the drive shaft here and into the wheel ends up coming unthreaded. So it screws into this piece here on the wheel, and inside there is the screw. So what we're going to do is take this carrier apart, this hub carrier assembly, take this drive shaft out. We're going to thread lock. Now this looks like red thread lock, but it's actually the blue thread lock. It's just from Team Losi Racing, so it looks red, but it's actually the blue style. And so this doesn't need to be removed with heat, but it should help it stay in there and not come off. This time I noticed it was loose, so I just decided to kind of keep twisting it till it came off. Now this is the third time this has happened to me, so I've never put thread lock on it before. I just figured I'd tighten it down really hard. That doesn't work if you're at a skate park or if you're jumping it and really spinning those wheels hard. You're going to back that screw out eventually. And if you do own this truck, let me know if you've had the same problem. So let's go ahead and get started and see if we can get this thing to stay on here without coming off again. Okay, so what I like to do is generally use this wheel to kind of prop up the truck. It tends to hold it up pretty well there. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is make this carrier hub assembly swing down and out of the way so that we can take this out. So in order to do that, we just need to remove this 2mm hex screw at the top of the carrier assembly from the link. And then this carrier assembly just kind of rotates down like that, really easy. Now the next part will be this. You'll notice that sometimes the bearing may stay attached to this yoke assembly, I guess you could say, and sometimes it may stay in the carrier, but that bearing is supposed to ride in that carrier. So it's attached to this right now. I'll take it off in a second. What I want to show you is that when you pull on this drive shaft yoke here, it just comes off completely, and that is threaded there. So you don't need to worry about which direction or how it connects. It just slides back on. It's kind of a plus symbol or a Phillips head style connection. But on the other side here, you'll see that, if you guys can see that, there's a screw kind of wobbling around in there. Hope you guys can see that on the camera, but deep inside of there, part of the issue is that this screw is in there, and the only way to get that screw to come out to get to the threads is to take this metal four-way, this universal joint, I guess would be the name of it. The problem is I don't want to take that apart. I've done that once, the last time I did this, and it's really hard to get back together, and it kind of weakens the plastic and everything. So I wouldn't recommend taking that apart unless you have to, because you can access it this way. I could just put this back on here like this and then screw that back down, and that's what I've done in the past, but it doesn't stay. So what we need to do is, I'm actually going to just put a tiny bit of thread lock inside of this. Now I know that's not the right way to do it. You're supposed to put it on the screw and then thread the screw in, but because of how hard this is to access the threading, I could try to put some thread lock down in there with a toothpick or something, but I'd feel a little bit more comfortable, because this is metal, of just putting a little bit in there. So what I'm going to actually do is just kind of sneak in there and get a little bit on there, just like that. Now this is probably too much for this application, but either way. So what I'm going to do is very carefully, I just want to get some just inside of that hole, just like that. Now that's going to be enough that it's going to push a little tiny bit in, and hopefully just keep that on there to where that won't come off again. So hopefully that will be enough thread lock, and we'll see. Okay, so now that you've done that, it's just as simple as reconnecting like you always do. One of the issues here is that this yoke will need to be through here first and then into this in order to be assembled, but we need to screw into the wheel. So the only way to do that is to actually take this carrier assembly off, screw it onto there, and then reattach the carrier assembly in. And I'll show you exactly what I mean here shortly. So in order to do this properly, you have to take out this tiny little screw at the end, and what this screw does is it holds this pin here, which keeps this assembly attached. And what we want to do is push this pin outward. So what I do is I take my 1.5 millimeter very carefully and kind of just give it a little motivational push. And that comes out like that. Drop your tool on the ground as loud as you can for the camera. Okay, and once you pull the pin out, the carrier just comes out completely. So now you're ready to actually assemble this. So what you want to do is take your yoke here and the bearing. Make sure you seat that bearing in there completely. Okay, and then once you have that into the carrier assembly, what you want to do is connect the wheel, that piece, onto there, and then take your 2 millimeter and you're going to kind of, as best you can, go down into that shaft. Okay, so as you tighten that down, you should start to see that the assembly starts to tighten. Okay, so what you want to do is just kind of give that a nice tightening without over tightening too much. And you want to make sure that that is firmly in place, but that also the wheel spins freely and that doesn't cause any problems. So from the yoke it should be attached, and then from the bearing hub assembly it should be running smoothly. There you go. Okay, so now that it's thread locked, let's go ahead and put the wheel back on. It's kind of the same thing in reverse. Okay, so to finish this step you need to take off the wheel here, which I keep very tight. I don't use thread lock on my nuts for the wheels. I just tighten them down and they usually don't give me any problems, the actual wheel falling off. But in this case it is the screw on the back side that's backing out. So let's take this off. Okay. So you have your hex, carrier assembly and all this. So reconnect everything, put the yoke back in. Then the next step is push that pin back through. Okay, once you have the pin back through, don't forget to put the tiny little screw that holds that in. So the lip of the screw head actually keeps that pin from coming out. Now, don't over tighten the screw. Mine's, I don't know if it's stripped or that's the way it's supposed to be, but it doesn't tighten. It just kind of keeps turning. So just tighten it down until it stays in place. I'm not sure if that's the way it's supposed to be or not, but that's how it is on mine. And it seems to be that way on both sides, but I haven't had any problems with it. When I first noticed that, I checked the other side and it was the same way. So curious if everyone's Granite 3S V3 is like that. I think it's just random, but I've always been a fan of buying stuff from local hobby shops just because it's easier to return things if you have problems. And the guy that I go to is really nice. So he always answers my questions and is willing to help, which to me is valuable. Alright, so we're all done. Gotten everything attached. Got the pin put back in, we got the screw holding it in place, we got the link on top attached. And so once you mount your wheel on there, now theoretically that thread lock should hold it in place and we should never have another problem with this wheel coming off. Now if this wheel comes off again, I'm going to throw it in the trash. I'm just kidding. If this wheel comes off again like this, I may use either more thread lock or I might even go to the red thread lock because it's annoying. I mean, having your wheel falling off like that, besides being just embarrassing that your wheel's falling off and there's nothing wrong with your truck, it's just annoying to have to take this apart and redo this all the time. It's a super easy fix. Tightening it is even easier because you don't have to take the carrier assembly off. It's really easy. I could have just tightened it and put it back together, but because I wanted to be able to access and put the thread lock and everything on there, I just decided let's just do it the right way and let's see if that holds up. So I'm gonna take this thing out and bash it. It's been holding up well. So thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I appreciate you if you've been here this whole time. We're trying to hit 1,000 subscribers here and we're getting close. So thank you and I'll see you on the next one.